This is Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get on the church. We're going to mandate get on. Welcome to the best hour or so in the universe. It's Reasonable Doubt. Mark Garrigus in studio.
In studio. I rushed right over. I heard you were here. I wanted to see you all in one piece, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
After my car accident?
Yeah. Are you shook?
No. I don't really have a personal safety mode. I have an embarrassment mode. And I was embarrassed that I took the car off the track. And
you
put it
were
into
not
the wall.
alone, though.
Yeah, there was a lot of issues on turn 3 because there was a constant stream of water. Something I'd never seen before at that track.
And how many? There was a number of crashes. I followed this closely.
There were, I don't know, someone tweeted me maybe 12 over the course of the weekend, but those included some vintage cars too, not just folks from my run group.
You're in the arena. That's what counts.
Yeah, well, I have plausible deniability or some sort of, there's a few ways you can get off the track. You can be punted off the track by another driver, in which case that's kind of on them. And then you can take yourself off the track unprovoked. That's on you. And then there's force majeure,
right?
Which is a lot of water on the track. And
I had never thought about force majeure when it comes to the track, but now that you mention it, I can see it.
But
just like there's assumption of the risk if one of your pieces went flying into the stands.
I should have kept myself on the track. The water was there. I'd done several laps with the water there. I was trying to hang with some speedy guy who just passed me, and I got a little aggressive and thus off there. It wasn't the water that was on the track. It was the water that was next to the track, the pools of water. When you hang a tire, you usually hit dirt, which is not great, but it's always very savable. There's plenty of places you can hang a tire, as they say, get it off the track and into the dirt, and you'll deal with it, but you'll usually come out the other end of it. But you can't hang it into a river, and that's what I did.
So many years ago, you won't remember this, I'm sure, but we talked about the fact that you and I have a similar worldview when it comes to other people doing their jobs. There's always, you look at somebody and say, I could do that with the right number of hours, 10,000 hours, 10,000 tries. I could do that. And we were talking about that. I thought about that at Laguna Seca, because that's one thing that I don't think I could do it. As much as I love cars, love driving cars, I don't think I could ever get on the track and compete. I just don't think that's within my skill set or wheelhouse.
I think you're selling yourself short. I think you could do it. You do some testing days, get some seat time, and then also they have a whole telemetry rig now. It's a semi truck that has a booth in it, where you sit there and watch your line, your lap speeds, your corner and enter, exit speeds. It has, and I'm not even scratching the surface, it has brake pressure. You're not braking hard enough. It has G-force. You're not pulling enough G's.
So do you do that before you get on? Can you kind of virtually create the situation?
Well, you can't do it because you have to compare it against you.
Something you've already done.
You have to lay some laps
so you
down.
Got to, like in the old days when Bob Bondurant had his 3-day school, you could go to the school, you could go through that, and then you could kind of like when guys watch their golf swing or something, you can
video
kind of
it. Right. Yeah, you can do that. It has, I don't know, did we show that on the show? They got the in-car camera. They got your speed. Did I show this to you?
I saw it once, but I don't remember if it was on the show or
I don't believe we showed ours. We showed someone else on this particular show in the lead up to your weekend.
So let's do that as our
lap.
Our lap. I'd love to see a lap.
There's one lap.
How long does a lap take?
Lap. How long does it take me, or how long does it take a guy's fast? My best lap was a 131 with the wet track, or with a wet turn number 3. You could say number 3 wasn't wet. Maybe you could get it down to 130. Then I would have gone back into the telemetry van and tried to get another 2 or 3 seconds out of there. If you're doing 127s, 128, you're in the mix. If you're 130, 131, you're not really in the mix. So
that also goes back to your theory about seconds.
Well, speaking of seconds, the two guys that were trying to go for pole position, you get pole position, but it's an hour and a half race, and pole position is really just being on the inside of the first turn. Doesn't exactly give you that much, but you get points for pole position. So they do battle for pole position. Pole position, the difference between first and second place was 6/1000th of a second. On that is not even measurable.
Between winning and losing.
6/1000. That's not a tenth, and it's not a hundredth.
Right.
It's a thousandth of a second.
Is this it? This is you.
Yeah, I'll show you. You can go full screen, Gary, but I'll show you what a lap looks like in that car. Although I don't know what happened. Oh, it's the clock. The clock is blocking me there.
So the one you showed me before did not have this kind of visibility.
Yeah, well, this is what you'd look at in the telemetry van when you got back in there, except for you could click on any data.
Are you double shifting as you went into that turn?
It's a sequential stick shift. You don't have to use the clutch. You see where the water was. You just push it back into the gear you want. And you'll go from first gear to fifth gear and then back to first. So you go up the hill. You go down into second around this turn here.
Okay.
Then third, fourth, fifth, or maybe I didn't get into fifth there. You go back into first for the corkscrew. Then it's a short shift into second. Left-hander, second.
Got it.
Second, and then you'll get into third for a second going around.
Yeah, you just went into third, right?
Yeah, and then back to first again, back to the beginning of the straightaway. This dive bomb by a Porsche.
I was just going to say that Porsche just...
Well, I'll catch him. It gets a little hairy going over the hill at 140 miles an hour right next to somebody. All right. We can watch me slide off the track here. Sorry.
Okay.
This is me.
Wait, we got you. We got the action shot?
Oh, yeah. You see
the money shot?
I'll hit the water. I'll get a little bit loose. And then I'll hang the tire. And then I'll hit the... that's right. Get a little bit loose in there. And then I hang the tire. And then kick me back onto the track. And wow, that's all she wrote.
Well, that is not as... From that perspective, is not as bad as
Paul Walker.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. I was fine. I was just my ego was bruised.
I don't know. This is not this, as you explained. I think last week, this was not a celebrity race. These are the fastest Trans Am guys in the world. That's it. So you're going to dust yourself back off and
I'd love to do it. Yeah, I got a couple of hey, you should do this. What you got to do is you got to get there. You need a day of shake out the car. You need a practice day. You need it's not even really what they call it. You need some seat time. You need to show up somewhere. You take a flight in somewhere,
right?
Meet at some track, drive the car for a day, get all the telemetry shit, and kind of get yourself dialed in, and then go do the race. That's the way you should do it.
Paul Newman
testing day.
Paul Newman raced until he was how old?
Until the end, 80, 83,
wow,
82 and a half. He raced.
So you can't
in a
fly.
Trans Am race.
You can't fly a plane after 65, but you can do a Trans Am race in your 80s.
If you're Paul Newman, you can. Wasn't a lot of old timers around the track.
Well, so there's no upper limit. They don't. None of the groups or the associations enforce an age limit.
There's no seniors division. There is you have to pass a physical, right? And they want to know how your eyesight and your heart is.
Your eyesight and your heart, but they don't care about your cholesterol or blood pressure.
Yeah. They do care about your blood pressure.
Because they don't want you to explode as you're driving.
I don't know, but I got mine done by Dr. Drew, and I had to buy a little blood pressure, device and have him check it over here. So
wow.
All right. So we'll be back but the car's fucking fantastic.
I just love it.
Newman took the pole in his last professional race a year before he died. 82 years old.
Lime Rock. Wow. I think
Watkins Glen. It says
Watkins Glen. That's even tougher.
Yeah.
And in a 2008, even later, run at Lime Rock. Your memory is flawless.
Well, I made a doc, but Lime Rock.
You made it. By the way, that doc did not get as much play as it should have, in my humble opinion. That I remember watching it back when you were on Woodley, and it's impressive.
Well, he's an impressive guy, so all you have to do is sort of competently capture him. And you're done. Yeah, he had his hometown track, Lime Rock, Connecticut, little miniature track, like 1 mile. That track's 2.2 or 3, whatever, bigger. But, and if you want to know, and then we'll get into the legal proceedings, the last one I did was at Willow Springs. That track is 2.5 miles, and the lap time over there was like 122, maybe 121, 122. This track is 2.2 miles, so it's a bit smaller. And the lap times were 128, 127. So the thing is, it's more technical. Right. So people always go, how fast are we going? How fast are we going? Anyone can go in a straight line. The guys that are fast are the guys who hustle the car in the slow bits. The straightaway, everyone's doing the same thing, essentially. It's how fast do they get in and out of those slower bits. That's what I
always say, that that's where it takes the skill. I mean, that's where the bell curve is. It goes down dramatically.
On the straightaway in that car, you do not lift your foot off the accelerator. You mash your right foot down, and you just keep grabbing the next gear. You do not push the clutch in. You do not lift off. You just mash your right foot down. It took a second to kind of work the muscle memory out on that, but you put your foot down and you hit the rev limiter and you just grab the next gear.
There's an awful lot that's similar to that in cross-examination. I'll segue right into Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Amber's lawyer, by the way, has been getting social media has just been vicious on this guy.
I have my two favorites ready.
Okay, I'll look at that. Gary's there. Okay, show it up. Let's. Do
you know this guy?
No, never. I don't know him at all. I'd love to talk to him though.
All right,
you didn't know what could cause damage to Mr. Depp's hand while you were there on March 8th, correct?
Dr. Kipper told me he sustained an injury on one of his fingers.
Objection, hearsay.
Wait, you asked the question.
Okay. He said he sustained an injury to his finger.
So he objected.
Yeah, well, look, I know he's been excoriated for this, but the proper objection is, if you wanted to do it right, when the witness strays off your question, you don't object to the form of your own question. What you do is you say objection non-responsive, motion to strike. That's the proper. I mean, and people go, he's objecting to his own question. No, he's objecting to the answer, and I agree there's a more elegant way to do it, which is as soon as he starts rambling. By the way, sometimes you want a witness to ramble. You want to get it out because the witness will say something that you can then go and pin right back. But here you don't the calls for hearsay, technically that's true, but what you want to do is just say objection non-responsive, but in motion to strike.
Right. So, I mean, he just screwed up his nomenclature there, right?
Exactly. What he was trying, he knew there was a problem. He just didn't articulate it right. Wait, what's the other one, Gary? Because this one I think is pretty funny.
It is, and this one's a very internet meme-y, so there's like music and stuff on top of it, but here we go.
And Mr. Depp was trying to urinate in the foyer, wasn't he?
No.
Mr. Depp had his penis out of his
Objection.
pants, didn't he?
I think I would remember
Relevance.
seeing Mr. Depp's penis.
I'll allow it. Next question.
And you were trying to get Mr. Depp out of the house, correct?
Correct, I was trying to get Mr. Depp out.
Well, it's a
by the
circus.
way, the judge, could you tell? You can't see her in this, but could you tell? I'll allow it. She wanted to
Yeah.
hear about his penis.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you got Johnny Depp in your courtroom and it's being filmed, and you're going to start talking about Johnny Depp's penis?
When are they bringing this thing home?
This thing is like the Lawyers Full Employment Act, both from the participants and the commentators, so me included. So they've estimated about 6 weeks. I found the interesting one, and by the way, I think this rings true just from scuttlebutt I've heard in L.A. Did you hear about the Amber Heard? Gary might know this. What's her name? Carolla. What's Kara's last name?
Divine?
Yeah, and Elon having a three-way in his penthouse at the Eastern Building?
Oh, this is Elon's baby mama? Or is that somebody else?
No, it's somebody else. But yeah, I've heard that story. That's a story that's floating around Hollywood right now.
Oh, it's all over Hollywood right now, especially because there's one of the things on Scuttlebutt is Elon running out naked out of the Eastern Building, and the security guy assisting him. Another one was Cara Levine.
Cara Levine, who's the sort of on again, off again lesbian model.
Apparently he's got some kind of connection here. But I'll tell you that Johnny should have gotten more money for his penthouse at the Eastern Building because quite a lot, of activity there.
A lot of good history.
A lot of very good, kind of a rich history. You know,
provenance, they call it.
Provenance, exactly.
Rich provenance.
I mean, this trial, and I keep saying it. In fact, somebody tweeted the other day, Mark, maybe this is what he really wanted, meaning Johnny wanted to just take her down with him.
So what's the prediction?
Well, the prediction, he's lost a first cousin of this trial once before in 2020, but there wasn't a jury. The way this thing is being tried, at first I thought it was a pox on both their houses. Now it's such a shit show that it's entirely possible that he wins, but they don't have an excessive amount of damages. But it is extremely interesting to me that and I said this before on the show, he's the plaintiff. He's the one who brought this case. He's the one who is memorializing this by having TV for his kids, for posterity, that will be memorialized. So you just wonder, what was he thinking? And then people said, well, what are they supposed to do? Well, I do not think for a second that his lawyers are operating on a contingency fee.
Right.
This is not where they're saying, okay, Johnny, we're going to advance all the costs, or you advance the costs, but we won't charge you unless we prevail, and therefore we'll take 40 or 50% of what your contingency is. I don't buy that for a second. I think this is somebody who's billing by the hour, and I think clearly she's getting her, probably insurance company is paying the lawyers by the hour. My guess is this is a insurance defense. It has all the earmarks of it. And it's striking to me that this, unfortunately, will end up being what people take away as to what a civil lawsuit looks like. And as somebody who's tried many of them, this is not indicative of what you normally would see.
You said indicative. Rust.
Boy,
I haven't seen. I've seen some of the footage. I've heard some of the.
Hasn't seen my list, and that's the first thing
on
your
list.
Hold on, I'm going to do one thing first. Speaking of Rust and insurance, Geico. Would you love to save money on insurance? Of course. Who doesn't love a deal? When it comes to great rates on insurance for everything, Geico can help. Insurance for your car, your truck, your motorcycle, your boat, RV, even a homeowner's condo or renter's coverage. Save even more with a special discount when you bundle coverages. So bundling would be if you've got a truck and a motorcycle and a house, you put them all together, they'll give you a discount even then. Plus, add the easy-to-use Geico mobile app and 24-hour roadside assistance, and the switch to Geico becomes a no-brainer. Switch today. See how much you could save. Simply go to geico.com, GEICO.com, to get a rate quote or contact your local agent.
So,
Russ, Gary, what's your list?
So, yeah, no, I mean, I've seen some of the body cam footage, most of it, but mostly what I'm interested in, that's a little disturbing. I don't really see the utility in playing it at this point, but I'm interested in Mark's take on that, and then footage of Alec Baldwin being interviewed, possibly at a police station, kind of bird's eye view in the corner of an interrogation room. What does it say to you that all of this stuff is coming out while the investigation is still, by all accounts, open?
So I'm going to speculate. I'm going to preface this with speculation, and I believe you mentioned something like this on one of our Beyonds, and I think it's true. I think that there is some tension between the law enforcement agency and the district attorney. I think that this dump, if you will, of tapes and investigative stuff is that the law enforcement agency has got at least an inkling that the DA does not want to bring charges. And so this is a way for them for the law enforcement agency to leak these things so that it puts added pressure on the DA to bring charges. What do you think of that?
That makes perfect sense to me. I don't, especially when Trump was president, there'd just be these leaks all the time. The FBI, the CIA, it's like leaked information. How does one leak video footage of an A-list celebrity in one of the biggest cases in the nation, and there's no retribution, or they don't know who this is? I mean, first off, where's the protocol? I mean, you have video footage of this. It should be walked, it's like the Oscars. I've been at the Oscars 2 times. They don't leave the fucking briefcase with the winners in it just on the lunch table. It's a handcuff to a guy and he's sequestered. And, there's a whole bunch of protocols, or the nuclear football that the president has. What's with the fast and loose tapes, leaked, just stuff? Like, how does that even work?
So one of the things that I've argued for years, for more than 3 decades, is that, and this is usually after charges have been filed, you would see where the prosecution would come out and they would announce either the arrest or they would announce the filing of a case, criminal case. And then they would instantly, after they kind of have crowed about solving this case or bringing the case, they would then seek a gag order. And I used to argue originally gag orders, when they were kind of instituted, were specifically to try to protect the accused. You didn't want the media having a frenzy, blah, blah, blah. But what has evolved over the decades is that the gag order is now used by the prosecution to basically gag the defense and the accused, and whoever's representing them. But one of the things that I've always argued is, well, gag orders also are idiotic because you can't gag law enforcement. Law enforcement is who leaks these things. That's where it comes from. Whether it's in your case, the example you gave with Trump, where it's coming out of an FBI agent, as we know now it was, or some FBI personnel, or in this case where presumably it's not being leaked, it is being leaked by the law enforcement agency. They're not gagging them, and so you gag the lawyers. But what good does that do? Because the law enforcement's got this symbiotic relationship with journalists who have a interest in the law enforcement continuing to always leak them stories. And so they're not going to give up. They've got source protection. They're not going to give up the law enforcement person who's leaking, and it becomes a one-sided deal. And that's clearly, I think, what's going on here. Wouldn't you say, Gary, there isn't anything flattering that's coming out that's being leaked?
No, and I would think that they would have to be the law enforcement agency because they probably keep pretty tight control over those body cam tapes.
So they're doing it to try to gin up some interest in moving forward with a criminal indictment.
I don't think that there's any other logical explanation. I'm happy to have people suggest one, but it looks to me, and this, by the way, the prosecutor, who I think is a fairly recent vintage as the prosecutor in that county, has and has been characterized as I believe, as a progressive prosecutor. And oftentimes what happens when you have a progressive so-called progressive prosecutor and a law enforcement agency, they get at odds with one another rather quickly. And this would seem to be that playing out here, if you will.
So was there anything said in the interview of the leaked tapes or the non-leaked tapes by Baldwin that would fly in the face of the interview he did with Stephanopoulos?
Yeah, Gary, if somebody were to do, maybe we'll do this for Beyond this week, but if you were to do a side-by-side with the Stephanopoulos interview and then you put it next to what was being said in the, what did you call it, Gary? The eagle-eye view of the
Yeah, it was like a bird's-eye interrogation room.
It's very interesting, and it's one of the reasons why I said that Baldwin never should have given the Stephanopoulos interview because, number one, it did have the one effect that I thought it would. It pissed off her, the victim's husband, the decedent's husband, enough so that he hired a lawyer. Number two, you can use that all day long. I've been on the receiving end of that.
Well, not only that, but he was able to create his own digital version of what happened that obviously is going to make his case and then put it out there because he didn't draw first blood.
Right. Exactly.
So was there something about squeezing the trigger versus not squeezing the trigger?
He said he didn't pull the trigger in the interview with Stephanopoulos, famously. Right. That is not mentioned in the least, is my understanding. I haven't watched the whole thing, but as being reported in this. Isn't that true, Gary?
I believe that is my understanding.
And see, that is, if you're going to say the hammer struck and that's what caused it, or I didn't have my finger on it, that's a significant fact. And even if it's not commission, the omission is going to give a prosecutor who wants to bring charges a whole lot of daylight in order to take you on that.
Well, the whole conceit is that he was pointing it at her because they were filming a scene. So isn't there theoretically an 8K version of a camera pointed directly at this gun at the moment that this happened?
Exactly what I was talking about with, not you, but another cinematographer, which is, where is that?
Yeah,
where
exactly.
That's
we're done.
Well, didn't they say they were rehearsing and that's why?
They were setting up the shot maybe, but
I think he was rehearsing, and I think they were trying to figure out where the camera is, and then.
But wouldn't you have the camera on so that when you're doing it, you could actually see how it looks?
You would have the. I'm guessing just because I've been on a few sets.
You've filmed this. So.
You would have like the viewfinder on, but you wouldn't be rolling on it per se, although it's all digital now.
Wouldn't a viewfinder have a digital record?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, we're into the weeds now, but they're either rolling on it or they're not, and I don't think they have a record digitally of basically the viewfinder, and then the viewfinder sort of the lighting and moving the camera around and moving your arm. It's all like a lot of when you film, you do stuff like you stand a little too close together. You would never stand that close if you're having a conversation. You open yourself up a little bit so you're not really facing each other. You're kind of opened out to the camera. There's like a lot of moving around. I remember Skip, when I did Catch a Contractor, his back was like 3 feet wide. And whenever the contractor would come in, he'd always get into their face. And he'd do this move where he like spread his lats out, and the cameraman was always pushing him to the side because we couldn't see the guy he was yelling at.
I need to get by your delts. And,
the guys who do the guys who do the reality show TV, they're part cameraman and then part like Sandman from the Apollo. Like they're out there pushing people. They're filming with one hand and pushing people around with the other hand because they can't see them. They can't see the face of the person.
So the one, if you're defending Alec Baldwin, the thing that is helpful is the statements, and I watched portion of this, of the armorer, the young lady, because she is basically cutting the causal connection or the causal chain by basically saying, I'm never going to work again. I screwed this up. This is my first opportunity. I mean, she's doing a mea culpa in real time that looks authentic and guilt-ridden, and that is something that I would expect his legal team is going to run with.
Yeah, I mean, I as big as Baldwin is, I still don't really see the exposure here. I mean, you can remove any premeditated anything out of it, and it's really just going to come off like a mistake. Now, again, there's mistakes. There's, put your kid's friend in the car and you don't put the seatbelt on, and you're driving over the speed limit, and there's a legal exposure there, but I don't know. I just feel like it's that's a tough nut.
I couldn't agree more when it comes to normal circumstances, but when you have that kind of celebrity, that kind of interest, that tends to, I've always said, it's God save me from the equal treatment of a celebrity. And you don't really get it.
We're living in a new world order where there's a Derek Chauvin trial that's anonymous, and then there's one where all eyes, where the world is watching, and that's going to affect the trial. And I think it may bleed into this Baldwin and the decision whether the DA should bring charges and so on and so forth. And it's not really the realm you want to live in terms of the court and the system, it has
an outsized effect on the system.
Yeah, this thing of we normally wouldn't bring charges, but everyone's interested. So now we are. And Chauvin wouldn't get murder charges, maybe he'd get manslaughter charges, but everyone's really interested.
And this week, if I'm not mistaken, Gary, they filed the notice of appeal and they cited some of this stuff as well.
Yes, they did. Yeah, his appeal has been filed. I don't think there's been much movement but the filing, but yeah.
And talked about the pretrial publicity and things like that of that nature. I think I haven't read the filing yet, but I would imagine they're going to talk about the other officer who was convicted of second degree, and then the court refined that after the fact.
Are we on the Chauvin trial now?
Yeah, exactly.
Is there any such thing, especially with a Baldwin trial, is there any use or such thing as even a change of venue anymore?
Well, this was also, interestingly, I've successfully argued for change of venue, and be careful what you wish for. Sometimes you go from not a bad venue to even worse. But one of the things, or the arguments that we were up against the last time we've done it, is, well, where would I send a case like this? Once a case reaches what I affectionately called supersize level, where it's usually during the summer, and it's usually when things are slow and during sweeps in May or June, and all of a sudden everybody gets fixated on it, and you enter that axis of defense evil. If that's the case, then it really doesn't matter where you are, but it does to the extent of where you draw the jury pool. So you could try the case in maybe the ground zero of where everything happened, but if you're drawing from a jury pool that is directly affected, I think that's where the problem is. I think you've got to somehow try to separate out those two things, rampant publicity and who are we drawing upon. Because, by the way, most cases are over in jury selection.
And, Baldwin is such a divisive character. It would suggest to me that if you took this trial and, you moved it to Florida, and you had some conservative people who hated that guy's guts because his stance on whatever political whatever, that could affect things.
Well, and by the way, law enforcement, as I think our own sheriff has said here in L.A. County, tilts right. And you can see where if you've got somebody who's characterized as a tilting left progressive prosecutor, that there would be some tension when you've got somebody who is a polarizing figure. Not to mention that you've got the fact that he was doing a caricature that got a lot of Trump over a period of time as well. So
yeah, don't have it at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are we at with our own DA out here in L.A.?
So George Gascón has become kind of the political football for the mayor's race, number one. and he is also in the sheriff's race. So we've got those two coming up. June 7th, I believe, is the election, and it'll be interesting to see who prevails and who doesn't, and whether Gascón is a driving issue or whether it's homelessness, which is one of our issues that we like to talk about. In fact, I was talking to somebody this morning who mentioned to me that they'd just gotten back from Seattle at the gym, and somebody who's a big fan of yours, and he said, you should tell Adam to talk about when the last time he was in Seattle. And I said, why? He says, because I got out of my hotel, went to look for something to eat, and the way you guys describe Lebanon Alley in downtown L.A. seems like paradise compared to some of the places I was walking in Seattle.
Yeah, well, all the major cities, especially the blue cities, are having difficulty, and so the question is there going to be a changing of the guard? I don't know what happened to our Mayor Garcetti. I don't know. He's not going to India.
Apparently, he's not going to India. He's just going. Apparently, there's all kinds of whistleblower style complaints that have been given to the Senate committee, and the Republican side of the aisle is having a field day with it.
Right. So he's not going to be the ambassador, but he's not running again as mayor.
He's termed out. Remember, he had somehow achieved on his reelection the additional bonus of extending his second term an extra year and a half. So we not only got 2 terms of Garcetti in the city of L.A., we got 2 terms plus.
And we're coming off Antonio Villarretardo. So, and I can make fun of his name because it's not his real name. So,
look, I long for Antonio, the days of Antonio.
Well, you got to go down to the Herbalife building and see if you can get him out of his cubicle, because that's where he's working. Jesus
I
Christ.
long for those days.
I would like you to get together with Antonio Villaraigosa, because, and I would like to walk in the room and go, oh, you guys know each other. Oh, let's see. There's one guy in this room who passed the bar first time out of the gate, and then there's somebody else who failed it 4 times and then didn't pass it, just failed it 4 times. I would argue I would only fail it 3 times, because by the time I failed it the 3rd time, I would realize I was so dumb that I couldn't pass the bar. But he failed it 4 times before we made him mayor, everybody. That's what we roll in this city.
He looks good.
He looks brand new.
Yeah, he looks fresh.
He's not stressed from using his brain all the time. Like you're always thinking. You know what I mean?
Trust me, I look tired. I'm a very tired look.
It ages you. So, predictions. You think who's going to be the mayor? Caruso?
Caruso. Despite the LA Times best efforts, I think it'll be interesting to watch this election and see what the results are, because I believe that there is a changing of the dynamics here, and I'll give you the theory in a month from now when we come back.
Last update on Tinhorn Flats.
We've got it's coming up this week, so we'll see. We've got a court hearing, and it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening. We also have a
They've
court
been out
hearing.
of business for a year now?
Yeah, for over a year. And we'll have an update on Cain Velasquez as well. We've got both this week.
And we're going to have an update on a case we've been following at reasonable doubt for almost 2 years.
Right.
Alex Murdaugh.
Murdaugh, yeah, which is fantastic. I've got a heart out. You're going to say goodbye for me, right?
I will. Okay. I always do.
Bye, Mark. Thanks for joining us.
Godspeed. I'll tell you about Cuts Premium T-shirt alternative, perfect for any occasion. These are beautiful, beautiful T-shirts. They fit so well. The fabric, I mean, it's just not the ones you grew up with. That's for damn sure. Tons of great colors and styles. Crew necks, Henleys. Oh, sorry, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's a shirt with like a opening at the neck where there's a couple buttons. Pretty cool look.
I know.
Yeah.
Crew necks, Henleys, long sleeves, something for everyone. GQ called them the only shirt worth wearing. Well, I'd say that's pretty high damn praise. Refresh your wardrobe in time for summer with Cuts. It's beautiful top shelf stuff. You owe it to yourself to get some Cuts. Right, Gary?
That's right. See for yourself why Cuts is one of the fastest growing men's brands with over 1 million shirts sold. Get 15% off your first order by going to cutsclothing.com/doubt. That's CUTS clothing.com/DOUBT.
All right. You can go and see me next week over May 6th and 7th, Indianapolis, Indiana. That is Helium Comedy Club, doing stand-up, doing some podcasting there as well. And then June 24th, 25th, Denver Comedy. And check that out at the Comedy Works South in Denver. Go to adamcarolla.com for all the live shows. Until next time, it's Adam Carolla for Mark Garagos saying mahalo.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Tune in next Saturday for an all-new episode.